All right. If Dad was watching 60 Minutes, all right. For those of you who, for all of those watching, what am I talking about? Dad watching 60 Minutes. I tried calling him about 20 minutes ago, and he had something on in the background. He said he's watching 60 Minutes, talking about the opioid crisis or something. Um, so Dad was watching TV. He's not a YouTuber. He doesn't have Wi-Fi or internet access, but he does have TV. I don't know how many channels, but he gets 60 Minutes, and it is now the top of the hour. He said he was going to call me back. Let's see. Let's see how long I'm going to vamp here. Today is Father's Day, June 21st, 2020. Decided it's time to call Dad. I haven't called him in several weeks. Let's see how long it takes him to remember that he said he would call me back. Maybe it's a bathroom break. Maybe it's to get a drink of water, crack open another beer, step outside, get a breath of fresh air, sit down and read a book. And then, oh yeah, I was supposed to do something. What was it? Oh yeah, my son called me. Let me call him back. See if it happens. Yeah, I'm recording. By the way, hello everyone. This is the first video I've put on Miracle Mom and Michael in several weeks. Why is that? Why did I stop posting on Miracle Mom and Michael? Well, the first excuse, or the first real reason, is Tales of Truth. That's my focus right now. It's the highest priority in my circumstances right now. I better focus on that if that's going to go anywhere. This channel, Miracle Mom and Michael, it's personal. It's it's a record of mine and my mom's interactions and opinions about life in general, whether it's current events, personal family history. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Hello?
Hey, hello there.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is.
Today? Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's a Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, I guess that's what it. Here, hang on a minute. Let's see. Well, I'm not in my comfy chair. If my phone is, I had to get over next to an outlet to get it plugged in. Here, hang on a minute while
Sure.
I go and get my beer.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
No problem. His beer. So, hello everyone.
Yeah. Oh, as a matter of fact, happy Father's Day to yourself. I've heard tell that you're a member of that club.
Yes, I have signed up. I am a card-carrying member of the Dad Club. It seems that I joined the same way that you did. Oops! What?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, what? Huh?
What are you telling me now?
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
And you know what? I have the same ratio. It's a girl, boy, girl. I a girl first, and then a boy, and then a girl, just like you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that's the way it's. Maybe that's the way it's patterned or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, hell, mine was I was born, and then there's a couple of sisters.
Yeah.
So I actually grew up with a couple of girls, which I think had a lot of influence on who I am. Because You know, I didn't have a brother. Well, I had my brothers, but hey, they were little kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
So that sort of changed my whole thing. I always got along with women a lot better than guys because I didn't know what guys were like, you know, doing guy stuff, and I was used to doing girl stuff in a sense, you know, hanging around with my sisters. Yeah.
what do you remember?
Yeah.
What do you remember about hanging out with them?
Well, we were a gang of three, I tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were everything, you know, playing in the sandboxes and out in the back and all that kind of stuff until I guess it got up to, you know, maybe well, yeah, up until then the brothers came along, and by that time I was up in third grade.
Oh, okay.
And that would have been up to about 9 or so, 10, and that's when it sort of got separated out, you know, about 10, I guess. See, I became pretty much a loner then, you know. As the girls, the sisters, yeah, they were the gang of two then, you know. And I was sort of just me. And then there was this baby in the next room, and then a little while later there was another little baby, and those two guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you remember that, or do you remember the babies coming home?
Baby coming home.
Well, I mean, do you remember your mother being pregnant, and then did she go to the hospital and deliver, or home deliveries, or what?
I don't know. Probably hospital in those days. Everything. I don't remember much about it. I remember the doctors coming to the house there in Nashville. Let's see. That was Nashville. That was from. Well, I don't remember. Joe was. I guess he was in Tennessee, and I don't remember exactly when he came on. I remember something more like Bart. It was in Nashville, but I don't remember a heck of a lot about that. They were just here they are,
Mm-hmm.
and then there were these little guys around, and yeah, and then we were off to Mountain City and off to there, and they were. Yeah, it was a whole different thing. Well, the thing was, you know, we shifted so much every year or two. It was someplace else. So
Yeah.
basically, it was a whole new everything every couple of years. You know, it was like a reacclimation to a brand new world, essentially. You know, well, you guys had kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but yours was your dad was being restationed. Was it military, or was it for his work?
No, they were just climbing, social climbing, getting up the financial scale and all that. You know, he was going from being he was a high school teacher, and somehow he got to become early on. I remember he was a principal of the high school, and then he became. Then he was in his teaching situations again, and then I guess he'd already had his master's, because that's how he got to be, you know, administrative.
Got it.
And then he went and did his thing, got his doctorate, and then he started looking for up in college.
Got it. So it was opportunities. He was relocating for better opportunities.
And I think a lot of that was my mom.
Uh-huh.
You know, her thing was basically getting out of where she was raised down the south there, and she wasn't real happy about like racism and stuff like that.
Mm.
Something about. Well, that's because her mother and her grandfather, he'd been a doctor in Tennessee, and he was known as the nigger doctor because he took care of black people as well.
Right.
So, and then they always had black people. He had black nurses, and my mother was raised with a black woman, and blah blah blah. So we were, you know, my mom wasn't into that racism stuff. I think she just wanted to get the hell out of the South.
So she saw they were kind of ostracized because her father was he didn't see skin color. He just treated people like humans.
that was my grandmother's father. Her grandfather was the doctor.
Her grandfather.
So that's where we grew up was anti-racism completely. And of course the deal was too. It turned out that my mom had to retrain my father because all them people up there, they were immigrants, and they sort of had that prejudice.
Yeah.
So
that ignorant strain.
Yeah, well, it's just the way things were.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. You think about it, that people, it's the way, it was the general attitude that these are inferior people. Isn't it obvious? That kind of thing. It's like with all this going on now. It's institutional. It's racism, which is sort of ingrained in the Americas anyway.
Right.
And so the deal is, anybody who was raised up differently in the South, such as my mother, that was pretty unique. Yeah, pretty unique. and when, of course, her grandfather and mother, they didn't put up with that kind of stuff, and that was kind of rough because it was predominant.
So they were in the minority. They were ahead of their time.
Well, in a sense, it was sort of the deal of, like I said, the polite racism was sort of what it was. It was just normal. But the deal was there was also the blatant, from the show, what we call white trash.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the bottom of the pile. These people are, those are the ones that are, those are the real bad. But even the higher society, polite society says, no, these people, they're people. They require some respect because they're actually, they need help. They need our help.
Right.
See that, and that was the way it was. And I think maybe that might be the way it's being pointed out loud. A lot of people still have sort of that kind of attitude.
Right.
Some people you talk about, you say, look at the proof. Look at all white people have done. Look what the black people haven't done. Damn thing. It's not that. It's institutionalized racism.
There's an expression I've heard is the soft bigotry of low expectations. In other words, they need our help is actually a form.
Precisely.
It's a form of racism. Yeah.
Which is actually too. That was that come out of England, etc. Their whole deal about colonialism was. It was justified by the idea that we need to help these people, and that was, what was it, Rudyard Kipling, he called it the white man's burden.
Mm.
See, so it's you can't really blame people so much for it because it's been around probably since humanity.
Well, yeah.
Well, in a sense, there's always the fear of the other,
Right, exactly. And even, my understanding, well, it seems self-evident that it's been around as long as human civilization because of what you just said, because of the other. We have a tendency in our country because the slaves in our country happen to be a certain color, a darker pigmentation, but slavery has nothing to do with skin color in the human experience. It's just the other, someone who is unlike the majority population. And even in the Americas, when the settlers came, even some of the Native American tribes here would enslave their enemies. So it was like they would conquer their enemies and enslave them. And so it's
and the whole thing too about, when you think about, the white man didn't just walk into Africa and start grabbing black folks. They got to know because let's face it, the tribes over there they had their things about each other.
Right.
And I remember when we were from Africa, the tribes were linear. It was like, the coastal tribes and the inland tribes and the farther inland tribes. And so they looked at each other that way. And so when white men came in, he got to know the tribes on the coastal tribes, and they were ready to do business. They went in and grabbed their upcountry enemies
Right.
and started selling the white man,
Right.
the white man.
So they were
The white man didn't just come in and do it. They had collusion from the locals.
right. Right. It was the indigenous population selling their enemies to these new traders.
Precisely, it was business.
Yeah. Right. Right. Make some money off of your enemies, and it was irregardless of skin color. But because in our country, the slaves. Wow, it's interesting how that through history.
And the interesting thing about it is too is that what in this over here, like what happened over here, the Spanish with the tribes down south, down in the large civilizations down there, the Aztecs and all these people, they sort of were used to a top-down thing, and so when the Spanish came in, they sort of they took over, and these people sort of became workers and slaves. Whereas the North American tribes, they looked at the white man and he says, "What? We're not going to put up with this kind of crap." Because they had a whole different lifestyle up here.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't build huge cities and great, sure, there were local here and there, and of course they had their little scraps here and there, and they would raid and hook into other. And what happened was the smaller tribes who were abused by the bigger tribes, they went in, they joined with the white man to conquer their
Right.
enslavers.
Right. Yeah.
So it all makes sense.
Yeah. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you know your history and you look at it like, hey, a lot of people do, see, that's the deal. When you, what is it, like various people say, Harry Truman, a few other people say, the history you don't know is, whatever it is. The deal is, when you see the history of humanity, it's the same today as ever.
Yeah. And it's, and that's the thing. It's like when you have a generation like today growing up completely ignorant of that history, it's like what they always say, it repeats. It's like, it just, if you don't see it, if you don't learn it and don't understand that history, those same trends come back. And
when the deal is, it isn't that they come back, they've never gone away.
Well, yeah, they just...
The whole deal about the promise of America, as we grew up in school and everything, this shining example of democracy and freedom and all men are created equal, it's never been here either. See?
Right, it's an ideal.
You go on back in your history, and it was just a lot of nice words, and it was actually for white folks again. Even the guys who wrote all that had slaves. See, it wasn't for, they weren't talking about everybody. So the deal is, but we grew up thinking that. I did in school. We thought, oh yeah, the shining example of the democracy and everything. Yeah, now we're seeing, whoops, oh my, we've all been kind of fooled.
But we did set up a system by which we abolished it. We knew it was evil, and I think they always knew it was evil, but because it was so entrenched and common, it took time for the majority to recognize it as evil.
Yeah.
And then, so I mean, as I understand it, America was one of the first to abolish slavery. I mean, there's still slavery in the world today.
Oh, heavens, yes.
But we paved a way for civilized or westernized nations to see that as an evil and to eradicate it. I mean, obviously there will be lingering effects over time, but we've been moving in the right direction, it seems.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's happening with all this is the explosion right now is we see that it's some people who just had enough of it because all the stuff that I'm sitting down here in Tucson and I'm getting my TV Jones taken care of, watching TV because I'm not I don't get that up north.
Oh, you're in Tucson right now.
Yeah, I came crawling out of Seligman, and I heard there's something going on. Tourists coming through with funny things on their faces and all that. I come down here and I found out that we got ourselves a pandemic and people are dying like flies, and this whole racial explosion thing that's going on now. And I said, wow, because we live in this little pocket of invisibility called Seligman.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on out in the world, and I'm down here getting I says, my God, the world's falling apart. But then the deal is, it's all pointing out things that have never been really fully addressed. That's the point, and that's coming out of the black community. And the thing is, just this guy George getting killed and being shown on TV, and everybody sees it.
Right.
Then it suddenly starts coming out. This has been going on all the time. As a matter of fact, the next day, and then the next day, and then this has been going on. The black community says, "Listen, we've been slaughtered out here. They've been murdering us, and I thought lynching was all done. No, it's going on." So the deal is, we haven't moved as far as this glowing example of what I learned at school. This glowing example of, my goodness, now we're done with that. We aren't done with it.
Yeah, there are bad actors. There are bad actors. I mean, unfortunately, what frustrates me is to lump all police officers together with this creep that, everybody it was like unanimous. Everyone agreed that this guy was evil, and it was regardless of who it was that he did it to, that it was evil, and it was unanimous agreement. But then all of a sudden there's this movement that the police are that policing itself is evil, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like I'd hate to be categorized with the worst things in my profession. Like, everybody who does that line of work, because that one guy is evil, or that small group of bad people, like everybody in my profession is evil.
Well, what's being pointed out is absolutely it's their union, and this has been going on all this time. These people who are bad apples, they can't get fired because of the union. And as they just pointed out, they were on. I just watched on 60 Minutes. They were talking to the police chief of Minneapolis there, and he's talking about the guy who is the head of the police union is an absolute racist. He says he was a guy that the police chief, who now when he was a cop, he and a batch of other black cops filed suit against this guy because of his racism. And now this guy is the chief of police there, and he says you still can't deal with this guy. He's the head of the union, and he's given up talking to the guy. He says this guy is what he's doing. He says, I as a police chief can't take care of the business of getting rid of bad officers because the union puts, and what they pointed out, of all the officers charged throughout the years that were fired, etc., most of them come right back on the job,
and that's
because of the union.
And that
because
is
of the union.
That is
and
the good that comes
cops,
out.
Even good cops, what are they going to do? I remember I had two ex-policemen I've known. They said they had to quit being a cop because the good old boy system, and they said they both had to quit because what they saw with, if you ain't with them, you're against them. So they had to quit being cops. So you're really, really, it's got to be the worst job in the world. First off, it's the worst job in the world because of what you got to do.
Yeah.
You got to face some of the most horrible shit in the world.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, you have to deal with the bad apples.
Yeah. The bad within and the bad without. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're the ones that you have to work with, and what are you going to do? So anyway, that's all the good news.
Well,
what kind of other good news? What kind of good news? You guys are doing all right, I assume. How do you feel getting stuck in the house and all that?
We're, it's a little stir crazy, but actually, Annika got to get out. She got invited to a beach, like a weekend or a week long getaway to a beach house with a friend of hers. So she was able to actually escape the being shut in. Um,
Yeah.
and things aren't so. I mean, it's frustrating. It's bad. Like it's affected my. I don't have a job, and
Yeah.
but so far, I mean, we still have a roof over our head. We're still fed, and we went uh, we went on a hike the other day. So I mean, we can get out. You just take your face mask with you, and you
Yeah.
follow all the precautions, and
Yeah.
you be a responsible citizen. But yeah, it's being shut in. It's been a little.
And that's the other thing about it gets me too. You got these people bitching because it's, I mean, what the hell there is my rights and the law, and some people, it showed a guy on here where he went out in some country where all the people who died there, they had burying them as quickly as they can, and all that, and they're sticking up all these little wooden crosses, and here's a guy denied it, and he's out there pulling the crosses out of the ground. He says, this is all scam and this is all bullshit. There's still people like that. He says, well, why should I wear a damn mask? I don't give a damn. It's my right. No, it isn't. If you got it, you can distribute it to other damn people. There's probably a attitude that people got. What, me? That's me. Don't tell me what to do. Hey, right now, we got to work together on this damn thing. This is scary as hell. Hey, I talked to Bart and Kathy. Jesus Christ, they're terrified.
Yeah.
Doctors and the doctors and the medical profession says, man, we've got something bad here. This is the worst thing. It hits civilizations. It's maybe the Black Plague, And so the deal is, people who are just sort of shining on. I mean, come on, that's irresponsible. Anyway,
well, the problem is we don't know. We don't know enough.
Right.
The early studies, turns out they were off. Some of the early studies were projecting high mortality rates, unlike anything we've seen. Those mortality rates turn out not to be what they were expecting, but there's still a lot of unknowns. Like it certainly kills. There's certain demographics that it affects more than others. Obviously, people with pre-existing conditions, people that have other conditions. It turns out this thing seems to it inflames our immune system. Basically, so your immune system starts overreacting to any ailments you have, and so people with pre-existing conditions end up those pre-existing conditions are exacerbated by the inflammation of the immune system, and that's why the lungs fill up with fluid because it's trying to fight off something, and so like older people like 80 and above, they're like 25% mortality rate, something ridiculous. Like 25% of people over 80 die when they get this thing. So that's the demographic that we need to protect, and that's why all these measures are important. But young people,
too, I remember that.
Go ahead.
Great, and talking to Beresfield, and various people are saying and maybe recommending and thinking various ways, and one of the guys says, we need to really start thinking about the idea of, which is really would outrage some people, but the deal about it, start thinking about the idea of quarantining certain people. Not like not like people who have it, but maybe. Well, one guy he's saying he says his father has accepted quarantine because his father's like 80 or 90 years old,
and that makes sense.
His father is saying, I'll be quarantined in my own home and not go out, and he says this might be something to think about. Fortunately, I'm sitting here in Tucson and I don't go out unless I got to go to the store.
Yeah.
Because hell, I'm 77. So
yep.
The deal is that's the deal. Stay home if you're at a certain a very high risk group. He says of course that enforcement of that would pull a great a rage. He says you can't tell me what to do.
And that
the deal is, even if it's for your own damn good, nope, you can't. See, because that's the deal. You just some places now, some places like other countries that have a little stronger government, they can say it. They say you stay home.
Yeah.
you stay home and you don't go out. You really do not go out. In this country, you can't tell people to do that because we got this Constitution. Oh, okay, yeah. Hang on a minute.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
Sure.
And have a second. Yeah.
I love my dad. Is he back already? He gets... Oh, there he is. No? All right, I'm posting this as one continuous.
Yeah, so anyway. Yeah. Well, anyway.
When did you get back to Tucson?
Well, I've been down here about, I think it's about my third week or something. I came down for, various things. So, I'm still working on my solar system. I've got it up to a certain point, and I want to maybe increase it. I'd like to be able to run a refrigerator, for instance. That's it. Coming in the summer, that's the problem. The winter time, it ain't bad. Front porch is my refrigerator, but and a block of ice now and then. But anyway, so I've increased. I got myself a couple more panels, modules, and I come down and buy a couple more batteries and talk to the lady and my consultant. And then something happened with a tooth started hurting. I said, "Uh-oh, better do something about that." And I come down and go to the dentist, and boy, he says, "My God, what do you do?" I went in there and filled about 5 or 6 cavities. And I'm in here, and I bite down, and what was that? Whole front of my incisor fell right off.
Yikes! Yeah. Oh.
So dental work and let's see, talking to that and what else did I do? I don't know. Doing a few things. I got an appointment tomorrow to see this lady, and then the day after that, I'm going back, getting back up north.
Okay. So you got some more materials to expand your power source, your solar panels and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, and I want to consult again with my advisor, and I got some stuff here to ask her about this, that, because, I don't, I've got ideas about it, but I want verifications. I want to find out if there's anything that I'm overlooking or,
Got it.
Is well, let's fit with that, and is this hook to that okay?
Okay.
Show what I'm doing, and see if she can, so she can say, well, that might not work,
Right.
Oh, hang on just a second.
Sure.
Again.
Is he answering the door? Okay, he's in Tucson.
Yeah, you jump back and forth there. Yeah, okay.
What's going on?
Oh, where?
You say you're jumping back and forth.
Oh, well, what the deal is, I just got my phone, and I found out the thing was almost dead, so I had to come over here next to an outlet.
Got it.
So I got it on the charger now, and my chair, where I usually sit, is over there across the room.
Oh, got it. So if you want to be comfortable and talk on the phone, you can't have both.
Yeah, so I had to run over there and pick up something. Get a cigarette.
Got it.
Yeah, and I had to go get a beer.
Of course, the essentials.
Oh, geez, I just saw a thing on there on the 60 Minutes. It said, it said there was something else where it pointed out that the value of exercise. Well, we've always known that's good, but it turns out that it also, what it does, it stimulates within you a very similar, the basic drug of marijuana, which is whatever it is. It says we have a similar one within us, and so that thing about runner's high, people who run, and jog, and they feel high, turns out it's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, actually.
So the deal is, so it turns out, as we're offline now, marijuana is really good for you in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad drug. And so, and it says any kind of exercise, and then it points out dancing. Dancing also stimulates it in the mind. It also is not only good for, running. They said, they used to think running is bad for the joints. They said, no, it's quite the opposite. The flexing of the joints stimulates blood flow in those, which stimulates healing in the joints. So hard running is good for your joints.
Okay. I'll get out there. I'll start running again.
Yeah, I always thought, they always thought that, as you get older, don't do it. This is saying, no, the more you do it, the better shape you're going to be in.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I have gotten into a running routine. I've actually been increasing my distance. I was running about 3 miles a day, and then I got up to like 4.5 miles a day, and now I'm up to about a little over 6 miles a day. But then I just took a break. Like, I haven't run in like 2 weeks, and so I've been feeling guilty about it. But when you were talking about the effects that it has, it's like, when I run, man, I am so productive in my mind.
Yeah, I get what they call it. It isn't dopamine. It's something, whatever the ingredient is.
Endorphins,
marijuana,
whatever.
It's whatever the marijuana thing is with a slight different name on it, or on the beginning of it. It's something that the body produces on its own. And then another great thing they showed on there is actually it takes less energy to run than to walk. Because as your foot hits the ground here, and then it hits the ground out there, and in between there's a and out there, so you're putting more energy into this, but you're putting less energy into the contact.
Yeah.
So it takes less energy to run than it does to walk.
It does. It makes sense. I mean, as far as going the same distance, I can't imagine walking 6 miles, but running 6 miles now is like, because when you get into a routine of running, it's your mind is not even on your body. Your mind isn't even on how you're feeling. Your mind is everywhere else. You're just, I don't listen to music. Some people listen to music, or they listen to radio or whatever. I don't listen to anything. I just think when I'm out running. I'm just processing information. And like,
precisely. Yeah, and it's good for the mind as well. That's the thing. People putting on the earphone things, doing all this, and people walking down the street with their face buried in their gadget on that there, and they're watching stuff. Now on the TV they're advertising, on PBS it says you can watch any of our shows anytime on this. And I says, why would you want to hold that thing in your hand and watch it? Why don't you look around you? There's a world out here. There's a world out here, and everybody's getting all hooked into that damn thing. And it's like a friend of mine there swimming. He had another guy. These are younger guys. They're youngsters. They're like in their 30s, and they're talking. They said, "Well, so and so this," and I said, they're talking about this and that. And I said, "What are you guys talking about?" And they says, "Oh, well, this is a game we're playing on it." I says, "There's a reality out here." But I can understand what that kind of thing, and probably right now that's a great thing for people. It keeps them connected somehow.
Yeah,
since you can't go out.
That's a thing.
It's good for that, but you're misusing it. It seems to me.
Yeah.
When you're walking around the world, why don't you look at the world? It's an amazing place we live on.
I had this epiphany one time. Each generation is skeptical of new technology, and it's like rock and roll is evil, and then that TV thing, that evil TV thing, and it's like when technology advances, the technology itself isn't good or evil. It's just a thing.
Precisely.
And people can use it for good, and people can use it for evil. And so I myself, I'm already, this next generation, and the kids, the kids these days are all on social media, walking around with their face in this phone, walking down the street. And, you're like, oh, come on, just lift your head up and look around. But I realized one time, it was just this thought that hit me, that this person looking at this phone, whatever social media application they're engaged with, they are communicating with someone. They
Yeah.
are connected, at least maybe not
Right.
in physical proximity, but at least
Right.
they are in communication with another person. And
Well,
it just showed me. It's
maybe
like,
sometimes. Yeah.
go ahead.
Unless they're just looking at a game or
Right.
TV or something like that.
But
Because that's the thing. But the thing, what you say, yeah, that's fine. But if you're just out there in another world as you walk along, you go ahead and walk in front of a car or something.
yeah, right.
But there is that. That's the thing. Anything has gotten is available for everything, and the human mind is not really very well disciplined.
Right. And that is where the real issue is, when big technology or big tech, the corporations that run a lot of the social media applications, or they have a profit motive, and so it's when they don't have an ethical standard, or it's like, they have studies, and they know how to keep a person locked in to their application. And one of those things is the likes. Like, if you have likes, or you have views, or you have a number that you're watching, this many people like me or are followers of me, or and it's this, and if they emphasize that number, it keeps a person sucked in an unhealthy way. And so it's the power that's in people's hands. That's where it's like, I don't believe in government overregulation, but there has to be some kind of accountability, where these corporations don't just suck the brains out of the young people for profit. There's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of.
And as far as I'm concerned, what's the first defense against that would be from the parents.
Yeah.
Now, if the parents have already collapsed into that, what chances does the kid have?
And
that's where I think the way I was raised, my parents were very much into, you read, you question, you critical thinking is what we were taught. Now, critical thinking isn't really very, it's not really around a lot. As a matter of fact, some people propose that. I remember when I got in college, I took a course called critical thinking. And I said, now this should be all the way down into high school and down.
I agree.
And kids, first and second and third grade should be always, in other words, question authority, always.
Question, not just authority.
It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means make sure you understand it.
Right, exactly. It's not even necessarily authority as we think of the government or something, but it's a question those who claim to be the authoritative voice or the authoritative source. Like, if somebody is telling you something, you should also know any contrary opinion. And, even though that authoritative source may be correct, if you don't know the other point of view, you are by definition ignorant. Okay. So just buying into one person's line of reasoning, if you happen to pick the right person every time, you're lucky. But if you can't state both sides, and speech and debate was one, that was the emphasis, or communications and speech and debate. You are given a point of view, and you are assigned which point of view you're supposed to represent. It's like, well, even if it's something I don't believe in my core, I have to be able to represent the opposing point of view.
Precisely.
And that's what's lost. That's what's lost in this generation. I agree with you 100% on that.
That's what my father loved to play the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
He said whatever you said, he would say the opposite, and then he would throw it in, and I still do it. I drive my roommate nuts on that.
You know what?
He has to every now and then corral and walk out of the room. Because,
well,
and the deal is, we generally get around, he comes around, and he realizes what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It makes him think.
Makes
him think.
So
he ain't used to that. He ain't used to that.
That's must be where I get it, because I drive my kids nuts. I drive my wife nuts. I drive my kids nuts, because, like, when you just said that about granddad, I'm like, Oh, that's where I get it. It's just
You betcha.
no,
Yeah, he was.
they just think, and
It's
they
like,
think I just want to be right. They're like, you just want to be right all the time. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to point.
no,
I'm point
no.
out these other points of view.
And like, whenever somebody says something, I say, well, the point is back your beliefs.
Yeah.
That's all.
Hmm.
And I understand why people believe the way they believe, and some of it, it's like I dig it, like with my roomie, etc. I understand why he believes the way he does, and the deal about it is, sure, he's right on a lot of it, most of it, but the deal is, can he back it?
Right. Right. And a lot of time we think we can back it, and then when we're called on it, we really can't. It's like, wait a minute, why do I believe this? Because I was told it, and I have a lot of friends that believe the same thing. But why?
Precisely.
Yeah, and I think because I had the same experience that you had when I got into college. I took a class called Logic and Critical Thinking, and it turned out to be my favorite class in college. And I'm like, there should be a version of this taught every year at every grade level. It's like this should be the foundation of every other subject matter that people are taught.
I remember one I did that was the guy, the professor. He asked, put out a question. He put out this question, and he says, "Now, to take that question, I want everybody in the room to respond to it. Write me up a paper and respond to that question." Well, what I did is I looked at it, and I looked at the way it was written, and I just went right into the way it was written, which was, I says, I have to assume that you mean this by that, but that is not necessarily. In other words, you asked the question improperly, and so therefore my answer to the question is, so I went off on that. And he looked at that, and he said, wow. It was, I just did that. I just took it apart as the language of it, because I knew what he was trying to say.
Yep.
I looked at the language of it, and that's the same thing with my roomie. Whenever he says something, I go for his language. I says, well, wait a minute, what do you mean by that particular word? Back that word. And some people think that just because they've said something, it's obvious that everybody knows it that way. And I said, wait a minute now. Not everybody sees it the same way. That's quite obvious, isn't it? Watch TV, look at the politicians, everybody talking, everybody. And look at all the people out there yelling, says, hey, we need to defund the police. And that's there. I says, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And then other people are coming out and saying that isn't what they're saying. That's unfortunate they're saying it that way.
Right.
What they're saying is
reform.
let's reform, and let's put some of the money into other things, because now the cops have to work on things like mentally ill people, or this or that, or somebody. Let's look at that. But let's have something else to take care of these problems, because the cops, they're just supposed to take care of violence and things like that. And they go off and somebody isn't violent, but how that isn't where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Somebody else is supposed to be doing that. And that's what they say the defunding means. No. Let's take some of the money and put it into some other things that we need to do.
Well, I'm glad we
that's what they're saying.
I'm glad we circled back to that, because that is the good that's coming out of this awful thing that happened, is people looking at what does need to be fixed in that part of that institution in our society. It's not, you can't get rid of it. That's impossible, and it would be illogical. But the reforms that need to happen, some places are doing it right. Those are the ones we should look at and make that more common across the board. Dad, I have to go now. I'm sorry, but
all right.
I just wanted to say Happy Father's Day. I love you.
I love you too. Hey, great.
I'll call you again.
I don't know. Okay, anytime. Yeah.
So you're going to leave Tucson in a couple days, or in a week or two?
Now, let's see. Right now, it's going to be, this is Sunday. It'll be Tuesday morning.
Okay.
In fact, I'd like to get out of here tomorrow, but I got an appointment at 11, and so leaving at that time, it means I'll be little crowded towards. It takes about 6 hours. It means if I take off at noon, I'll probably be getting. I don't know. I like to take off early.
All right.
So I can get up there.
Well,
I can get up there before dark.
You'll be in Seligman next time I call. That's all I was asking about. All right. Love you, Dad.
Okay.
Love you.
Hey, say hey to anybody who cares.
All right, I will. All right. Love you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Love you too.
I love my dad.